Crit Kaisa has made its way back into meta, Rod of Ages has turned into a great pickup on a bunch of mid laners, and Umbral Glaive is now a legit pickup on a few junglers. So we'll have the complete rundown of all these new builds and much more as we bring you guys 10 of the most OP new builds and rune setups for 25.8. And did you know that each game you queue up with the wrong build is another game where you're playing with a self-imposed handicap and just throwing away LP? That's why we work tirelessly to create the ultimate ADC itemization course. While others blindly follow recommended builds, you'll be dynamically adapting your purchases for maximum impact in every situation. This isn't just theory. You'll get side-by-side damage comparisons of items so that you know exactly why one is better than the others. Forget the generic advice. The course features 23 in-depth videos with each ADC getting their own complete analysis, from which rush items are the best to what your later game purchases should look like. Wondering when to build lethality versus crit on Misfortune? We break down the math with frame-by-frame comparisons. Is crit actually better than on-hit builds for Vayne? We have the answers. So why handicap yourself with cookie-cutter builds this season when you can be running the optimal setup on every single ADC? For access to this new course, along with thousands of hours of additional premium content, click the link in the description below. And with that said, let's get into it. So the first new setup that we have to cover for this patch is a rune page that is very underrated on Gwen. Over the past patch, a few high elo top laners in Korea have been taking Grasp as their keystone rune instead of Conqueror. This makes a lot of sense on Gwen because she's a champion who absolutely thrives in short trade scenarios early on in lane, and Grasp adds to that strength even more. Especially if you're in more volatile early game matchups where you're up against a fighter like Riven, Renekton, Aatrox, or Mbessa, Grasp will have amazing value. When playing into tanks, running Conqueror is still going to be the more optimal play, but Grasp in the right spots can definitely outvalue Conqueror. For your summoner spells, you can look to take Ignite with Teleport so that you'll have even more early game kill power. Grasp coupled with Ignite provides you so much more laning strength than Conqueror with Ghost. Here's what the complete rune page is looking like as you take Grasp with Demolish, Second Wind, and Overgrowth, while Free Boots and Biscuits are for secondaries. For the build, it's going to consist of a Riftmaker Rush into Nashor's Tooth 2nd and Rabadon's 3rd. A new Quinn build that's been dominating solo queue over the past patch, and it consists of running static Shiv for your rush item. This is another setup that's become increasingly popular over in Korea, as Shiv is now the most purchased rush item in the region. However, in the western regions, it's still Profane Hydra being rushed more. So Shiv in place of Profane Hydra, and Shiv actually has about a 2% better win rate than Hydra does. It's a bit of an earlier spiking build with Shiv costing 500 gold less than Profane Hydra. Both items serve a very similar purpose on Quinn, as the wave clear aspects of the item allow her to shove out fast to look for roam opportunities with R. The second item in the build is going to be Edge of Night, and then Lord Doms rounds it out third. So when you compare this setup to the more popular Hydra into the Collector and Lord Doms, there's definitely pros and cons. You will have less one-shot power with Shiv into Edge of Night, but the setup provides you with way more margin for error, as you get the spell shield from Edge of Night, the movement speed from Shiv, and the added health from Edge of Night. And this core of Shiv into Edge of Night is the most winningest Quinn build right now, so obviously those trade-offs are proving to be well worth it. For your rune page on Quinn, you'll be taking Electrocute with Sudden Impact, Grizzly Mementos, and Treasure Hunter, followed by Absolute Focus and Gathering Storm for secondaries. A new Graves build has started popping up ever since last patch, as Umbral Glaive is now a very competitive rush item for him. Umbral got buffed for solo queue because its passive ward revealing cooldown got nerfed. However, its damage went up by 5 AD and cost has been lowered by 100 gold. Umbral Glaive is now only 2500 gold, and its base stats are 115% gold efficient. With the item being cheaper than all other lethality options, this allows for Graves to finish his second item, being the Collector, faster and hit a really quick mid-game spike. It's just a great snowball-y build to run for Graves because not only is it cheap, but the passive on Umbral is actually really nice to have when you get a lead, because when going for aggressive invade plays, you'll know if you're being spotted on a ward or not and can make more informed plays with your advantage. For the rune page to run alongside this build, grab Dark Harvest with Sudden Impact, Sixth Sense, and Treasure Hunter, while Triumph and Alacrity are for secondaries. It's not just Graves who you should start rushing Umbral Glaive on, as Kha'Zix is another jungler finding great success with the item. You could argue the item is even better on someone like Kha'Zix, being playing around the Fog of War is so important for the champion. If you know you're not on vision with Kha'Zix, then the champion becomes absolutely godlike, as stealthing in from the Fog of War with your R and then leaping onto a squishy carry will have you deleting them off the map. Despite its much lower play rate right now, Sixth Sense Sense in place of Grizzly Mementos works incredibly well with this setup. Sixth Sense is the rune in the second row of the domination tree that reveals wards, so with this in combination with the ward reveal passive from Umbral Glaive and your sweeper trinket, there's almost no way for you to be running over wards in the mid game without knowing it. So the full build will consist of rushing Umbral Glaive, going Ghost Blade second, and Edge of Night third. The complete rune page has you taking Dark Harvest with Sudden Impact, Sixth Sense, and Treasure Hunter, while Freeboots and Cosmic Insight are the optimal secondaries. Cosmic Insight is really valuable to take with this build because it provides 10 item haste, which helps with the Umbral Glaive passive cooldown and the Ghost Blade active cooldown. So pros have started playing Rod of Ages on a plethora of mid laners due to the catalyst buffs from last patch. However, there's one mid laner they aren't building it as much on, who's arguably the best with it. Lissandra is who we're referring to, as looking at the analytics, she's finding incredible success rushing Rod of Ages, winning around 53% of the time, as opposed to her more popular rush item in Malignance that sits at 50%. Rod makes way more sense on Lissandra than it does with other mages that are being played much more with Rod, like Orianna or Victor. Lissandra is a champion who needs to be diving into fights and in melee range to be most effective. If you're playing a good Victor or Orianna, you should be on the outskirts of fights a lot more, so the health you're getting from Rod won't be providing as much value. With Liss, it's way more likely that you'll be able to leverage this health to your advantage, since when you dive into fights, you're guaranteed to be taking damage from everyone on the enemy team. So the full build you'll want to be trying on Lissandra consists of the Rod of Ages rush into Liandry's second and Zanya's third. Take Electrocute for the Keystone rune with Cheap Shot, Grizzly Mementos, and Ultimate Hunter, followed by Mana Flow and Transcendence for secondaries. A second mid lane champ that you need to go back to running Rod of Ages on is Swain. Prior to the Catalyst buffs from last patch, Rod was only played in 6% of Swain games, but with the buffs going live, that has skyrocketed to 40%. Even with this sharp increase in play rate, the win rate of Rod is far greater than any other option, winning 3% more than Blackfire Torch. The Catalyst buffs were really nice for Swain to help him through his laning phase a bit easier, as that's where Swain is the most vulnerable. Once you get to your level 6 and have your Rod of Ages completed, you become much more of a threat, so Catalyst allowing you to get there easier is great. Build in general is just way more noob friendly as well, because with Rod, you're getting all that health, whereas Blackfire Torch doesn't offer up any health at all, so you're able to play Swain how he's supposed to be played, like much more of a frontline bruiser. The 3-item core working the best for Swain right now has you rushing Rod, going Liandry's second, and then Riftmaker third. The rune page to go along with this build consists of Airy with Mana Flow, Transcendence, and Scorch, followed by Conditioning and Overgrowth for secondaries. So moving on to a few ADC builds now. The first one is a new setup for Kai'Sa that's extremely powerful. We have the complete and detailed breakdown of this setup in our new ADC item course, and from all the extensive testing we've done, we can confidently say that this is the highest DPS Kai'Sa build you can play. To make sure that you never build your ADCs wrong again, our item course is the place to be, as we've got detailed breakdowns of the best build for every single ADC. So the core has you rushing Yuntal Wild Arrows and going for Infinity Edge second. When comparing this 2-item core to the more popular Kraken into Rageblade core, the crit build won out in all situations. Whether you're trying to kill a squishy target or a tank, crit Kai'Sa is superior to on hit for 25.8. The only downside to going for the crit build is that you have to save up for 1300 gold in order to grab a BF sword. So if you're in a matchup where you get an early kill in lane and want to accelerate that advantage, but you base with less than 1300 gold, that's the only time where going for Kraken or Shiv would be more optimal. If you can manage to base on 1300 gold though, you should be going for Yuntal every single time. There's not really a set in stone optimal third item when going for crit Kai'Sa, as Phantom Dancer, Hurricane, and Flicker Blades are all viable. PD is the most optimal into more squishy champs, Hurricane into a heavy melee comp, while Flicker Blades can be nice into heavy dive comps to get your E on as short a cooldown as possible to increase your kiting abilities. For the rune page, take Lethal Tempo with Triumph, Alacrity, and Cutdown, followed by Free Boots and Biscuits for secondaries. So something we discovered when making the ADC item course is that Infinity Edge is a lot stronger as a second item on Lucian compared to Flicker Blades in most cases. The general player base has actually finally started to catch on to this as well, with Infinity Edge now becoming more popular than Flicker Blades in that second slot as of last patch. As for the first test, we fired off a quick burst combo on a squishy target. We compared Essence Reaver with Infinity Edge to Essence Reaver with Flicker Blades and a pickaxe. Reason we added a pickaxe alongside Flicker Blades is because Flicker Blades is 800 gold cheaper than Infinity Edge, so this way adding the pickaxe makes it so that the builds are only 75 gold apart. So with Essence Reaver and Infinity Edge dashing in, proccing passive, using Q and proccing passive again gave us 990 total damage, and then following up with an R, damage maxed out at 3006. With an Essence Reaver, Flicker Blades, and a pickaxe, an E into passive proc followed by Q into passive proc dealt only 663 damage, while following with R maxed out at 2413 total damage. So it's really not even close between IE and Flicker Blades when it comes down to bursting out a squishy, but what about if we are trying to kill a bruiser or a tank? We tested as well on a tankier target where we weaved in abilities off cooldown to find out which setup kills a tank quicker. We can tell this by looking at which build has the higher damage per second upon killing the target who has 2900 health and 110 armor. So with Essence Reaver, Flicker Blades, and a pickaxe, upon hitting 3021 damage, which would kill the target, DPS landed at 293. With Essence Reaver and Infinity Edge, upon dealing 3009 damage, which would kill the target, damage per second is ever so slightly lower at 284. So what we can take away from these tests is that if you're playing into a majority squishy comp, definitely build Infinity Edge second. However, if you're playing into a team comp that has 2 or more bruisers or tanks, there is some merit to opting for Flicker Blade second. The thing is though, for solo queue, there's not a lot of games where you're running into the enemy comp having 2 or more tanky champs, so Essence Reaver with Infinity Edge should be your core most of the time. So this is just a sneak peek at the extensive breakdowns that you will find in our new ADC itemization course, as we perform similar tests like this one for the majority of other ADCs, so you know when to run certain items in all kinds of situations. Now, even though you won't be going for Flicker Blades as a second purchase in a lot of your games, it's still an amazing third pickup. Third item is where Flicker Blades will gain max value anyway, because at this stage in the game, you will be team fighting more, which is when Flicker Blades can really bring the most value to you. And then to tie everything together, you will be taking Press the Attack for the Keystone Rune with Presence of Mind, Bloodline, and Cutdown, followed by Free Boots and Biscuits for secondaries. One of the most underrated supports in the game right now who has a new build for this patch is Jarvan. Jarvan's support has been hovering around a 50% win rate for the past few patches now, but has yet to really catch on. Umbral Glaive buff from last patch is a reason to why he's become even better as you rush the item on Jarvan's support. What's working best right now is an Umbral Glaive into Sundered Sky core, and then you take Bloodsong for the item upgrade. You max your E out first on Jarvan's support, as when fully maxed out, it provides your teammates with 30% attack speed for 8 seconds, which is actually pretty nuts. Where the champ is going to slot in best is in games where your ADC locks a champ who has some nice follow-up potential for your long-range engage. Think Misfortune, Jhin, Kai'Sa, Tristana, Caitlyn, and Ashe. Those are the ADCs who you'd want to be picking Jarvan's support with. For the rune setup, you want to be taking Electrocute, as the build is all about being able to catch enemies out of position and burst them out as quick as possible. Vel'Koz has a new build that you should be playing for 25.8, as it consists of rushing Shurelya's. Luden's has been the most popular for a while now, but Shurelya's saw a pretty big spike in play rate last patch and is outperforming Luden's. The big draw to rushing Shurelya's is the added movement speed that it provides for you. Spacing in fights becomes so much easier when you have the active available from Shurelya's, as you can be a little more aggressive, knowing that if enemies try to jump on you, you've got the ability to kite away with that movement speed. For a mage build, it's a pretty cheap 2-item core as well, with Shurelya's costing 2200 gold and Horizon Focus 2700. With gold income being harder to come by as a support, this setup is much more attainable to complete every game, as opposed to if you go for Luden's into Liandry's. The rune page you should be running on Vel'Koz consists of Dark Harvest with Cheap Shot, Deep Ward, and Relentless Hunter, while Mana Flow and Scorch are the best secondaries. Alright guys, one last thing, our rank up guarantee is insane. It's like signing up for the gym and getting a refund if you don't get ripped. That's how confident we are in SkillCapped. We obsess over making the best guides with top players, rigorous testing, and top tier video editing to make your climb easy. If you're ready to level up, visit SkillCapped.com and see the difference. So that's gonna wrap everything up for this one, guys. Thank you all so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.